now. So there. Oh, we're live. Wonderful.
We are.
So we have with us Claudia Goetzelmann. Did I get that last
Hello.
name right?
You did. You
Right on.
practiced it so many
I
times
did.
before,
I did. I did some
so the
practice.
truth is out, but you got
That's
it right.
right. So Claudia, I wanted to have you on because recently in my life, a very close friend of mine, he's passed away, and that was extremely difficult for me, and it still is. There's a process, and it's day by day, and I know that this is kind of an area that you sort of focus on is one of the things that you do among the many wonderful things that you do, photography, and you're involved in as a life coach, but you're an end of life doula. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so everybody's familiar with the birthing doulas. You help birth, the babies. And now there's a new profession, and that is end of life doula. So you help and guide the person from form to formless. You help to create a structure for that very person and the family members around it.
So how long have you been doing that for?
It's 2021, so 3, 4 years ago, I went through my own. I say I died. My old self died.
Mm.
I went through a crisis, and I got really interested in the topic of death. And as synchronicities had it, I was just so fascinated. I decided to go on this education, become a certified end of life doula. And then I felt that I didn't want to completely work at the very end of life. So I went on and did a spiritual life coach training. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started Permission to Bloom. And I'm now saying I combine all the knowledge and the gifts of what I have, who I am, and I share it forward with the world.
Wonderful. So
Mm.
it sounds very holistic in the sense that it's not just death, but it's
Well, it's not just death, but I mean, there is, it's the question is, what is death? How many deaths are we actually experiencing through our life? We don't need to just narrowly think of the one big death. Our cells
mm,
actually are dying every day and birthing. Every day in the morning when you wake up, you're a completely new person. And you have actually died in the nighttime. And in the morning, you arise again with, you know, newness. And we experience a lot of death in our life. So, for example, end of a relationship, a marriage, a
yes.
job, something, some part of our life suddenly ends, willingly or
Mm.
unwillingly. And we have to be with that. We have to learn to put it down gracefully. We have to learn to grieve it. We have to, just find a structure around to move forward.
I, I mean, what a wonderful thing that you said that we have to learn how to grieve it. Every single loss across the spectrum that is death, right? Because death isn't just this one, it's the cessation of life. It could be the cessation of a relationship, of, an occupation, a job, a moment, a generation, you know,
Mm,
the end of being a kid, the death of being a kid, the death of innocence. So
yeah.
you mentioned grief and grieving. Is
Mm.
there a formulaic way of grieving? How does one grieve?
Oh, well, it arises, and it's probably first when it comes a tsunami of emotions, and then you move through the stages. And and then that's where we get overwhelmed, right? We don't know what to do. And we try to suppress it because we don't know how to be with these emotions. It's anger, loss, sadness, bearingly
Mm.
sadness. And it's because there's suddenly this empty space inside of us. And to me, I like to reframe things. So for me, also grief is a celebration of what you lost, and it
Right.
shows how much you loved, what the value was of that person you or the situation you needed to let go of.
Mhm.
And I think that for me, or I would say, when we talk about structure of grief, if we can arrive there and reframe it, then we can start the healing process.
Well, and I think that that's the from a distance, of course,
Mm.
when you're not involved in it, but when you are able to sort of step outside yourself and look at what uh, death is. I mean, death is only hard for the living, right? As far as I know,
Right.
anyways.
Yeah.
But when you grieve someone, when you're sad, when you're like, oh my God, I miss this person, I'll never see them again, that tells you of the beauty of life.
Mhm.
Like that really to me demonstrates why life is so wonderful.
Yeah,
And
beautifully said. Because it's exactly what my message to the world is. When we talk about this, it has become so heavy, and people, when I say what I do and why I want to talk about this, and it's a taboo still. There's a stigma to
mm,
it. Then people usually shriek and they're like, "Oh my God, Claudia, why do you want to talk about this?" But then it's not just that. Again, it's the flip side is we need to talk about life. How well have you lived? How well has that person lived? How well are you loving? What does it really mean? And what you
mm.
experiencing? And if we can love and live in a very conscious way, then we can also find the journey towards the death in a more graceful and dignified way.
So actually, that's a good point. I mean, you mentioned in our society.
Hmm.
I'm just going to kind of assume sort of Western Eurocentric society. We've kind of there's a taboo around death,
Hmm.
and I just where does that kind of is that from our religious background? Where do you think that comes from?
When did that start? Probably with industrialization,
Mm,
because when you go back, when you see our ancestors, they had much more a tradition and a ritual around the process and the actual act of dying. And I was just recently talking about this with here in Germany. Old houses, for instance, the doorways are wider and bigger because the death was celebrated in the family home and the casket had to be transported in and out. So it was a family event, it was a communal
mm,
event. And then in our modern, so called modern world, we took it to the hospital. I think it started probably when we sort of dismantled families and the structure, when modern lifestyles, industrialization took the village square away, and
right.
so everything became a mall, and then our life went online, and now death happens mostly in the hospital, and it's very cold under neon light, and
Mm,
often there's hardly a family member there, or people have already been given medication for the ease of it, and they don't even experience the act of leaving this body.
wow. Yeah.
And actually I want to say something. This is very fascinating. Again, this is I recently thought about this. So when we are born, it's the same thing. We actually also change the way we're born into this world,
Mm,
because there is this cry, this scream, this primal arrival of the body, of this baby through the body, right? The birth
right.
canal. And we have already also made it easy with the medications, and it's all much more pleasant. So it's very fascinating that there's these these are the bookends of our existence in
Right.
in this life, And we decided to take the freedom or the authority as a society and change it. And I think we need to come
Mm.
back to traditions.
That's a wonderful point. Is that we're trying to control what has never really been of our control. Like
Hmm.
how someone's born. I mean, now you can get the injection to just completely numb it. And we also know of how that can further kind of complicate things is a
Hmm.
medication, right? Because then the body, we're actually not letting the body do what it does. Because we have a daughter. She's 18 months old, uh,
Hmm.
and soon 19 and months, and we were doing all the reading before about the breathe work and
Hmm.
having natural birth, and in our society, we do the injection, and then it actually makes for a way longer labor, and then
Hmm.
we go into death and how we try to numb people from the experience of death
Hmm.
when the body, the human species has been dying for 100,000 years. So there's
Hmm.
a natural way that we die, and there's things in our brain that allow it. I think there's like, DMT is released or
DMT,
something
yeah. Hmm.
when you
Released,
die.
yeah. And also, or the prolonging. Maybe the person really also already wants to,
Mm,
um, not be here anymore. And
mm.
by naturally, it's the process is ending, and then the family members decided to prolong it for years, sometimes months. And so it's because we're out of touch with what it means to pass on, to let go. The letting go is so foreign to us.
Yeah,
And that,
but
goes structures along our entire life because we struggle of letting go so many things. But if we are able to let go, we find really that freedom we seek so much, or the
100%.
intimacy with other people, right?
uh, I honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. And this is something that um, the I actually I was in this chat group last night, and I heard something that was just like, to me it was revolutionary. And I'm probably gonna hold on. I wrote it down what this person said,
Mm.
but it was advancement through adversity, something along the lines. And in our society, we love our comfort, and we. I'll speak for myself. I've avoided adversity throughout my life,
Mm.
but try as I may, try and hide as I may, adversity always finds you.
Yep.
And when I was younger, I've talked about this quite a bit. My father passed away, and that was very difficult and tragic. But it actually made me who I am today. It's made me I would consider myself an empathetic person,
Hmm.
and I have this ability to really enjoy the moment. Anybody who knows me knows I can really enjoy the moment, perhaps too much. But that's kind of where it is that we hold on to life and we try to control these people and keep them here. But it's like at a wake. People say all these wonderful things about the person, and I scratch my head and I think, did you tell that person when they were living this?
Mm.
Did you let them know how much you love them when they were here? Because
Hmm.
to me, that's the answer. That's part of sort of relieving ourselves of future grief and guilt, is telling someone we love them while they're here. And
Hmm.
then we can let go. But I think we
Hmm.
hold on to what we've missed out on. And, that goes back to the industrialization of existence, is
Hmm.
that we're working all the time. We're always busy, always doing something, that we're not able to live in the moment. And as a response, when it comes to the end, we're like, hold on, stay here. And it's this existential angst that, because of how we live, we've created this artificial journey, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. I agree. It's why do we struggle so much with this process, and why do we have so much fear about letting go and really, you know, we uh, uh, we as a society, it seems like we have lost the focus on that it's truly the journey. It's not about
Mm,
arriving. And there's, and then with the way we now live, and this is worldwide, everywhere, right? We buy into these ideas of in this hamster wheel, work, 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 buy another, get another mortgage. And then one day I will retire, and one day I will be happy, and one day I will
mm,
do this and travel the world. Even so, I wanted to do it when I was 16, but I just never had time.
right.
And so, where does this come from? Why are we so afraid to step out of it and say, now, now, just now? Because tomorrow, there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's no tomorrow. And we have so much now into our face, learned this in this past year. The universe is really
Yeah.
showing this to us, now. And what really matters is also then community and meaningful
Mm,
relationships. And then we become so afraid of saying to our beloved ones exactly those words: I care for you. You mean so much to me. I love you. I'm so grateful you spent this time, whatever. And we don't do it. Why is there so much fear? And,
mm,
it's this, the more we say it, the more we find what we want we find that connection, the intimacy, because we're allowing to be seen.
mm.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think we're, to your point, it's this idea of vulnerability, like as an educator, um, I'm an elementary school counselor, and as an educator, I see that really it kind of does lie in the messages and the stories that we're telling people, the examples that
Mm,
we're providing for our children. Kids are our future, and we
mm,
really overlook that. Like we really, in a very shocking, disturbing way, we completely underestimate the power of children, which are our future. And if you want to build a better society, where do you start? You start with your kids. But then there's, the education has become this very strange business, and that's a completely separate subject. But my point
yeah.
is if you want to get back to a world that has meaning, you start with your kids and being present in their lives and teaching them about it. Like I'll never forget my dad when The Lion King came out, greatest film of all time, in my opinion. He explained to me the circle of life because I just thought it was a cool movie, and I was like, sweet, there's lions and they fight. But he's like, no, this is all about the journey. And
Mm,
he sat me on my bed, and he was like, one day I'm going to leave and you're going to have to live your life without me, and you're going to start a family, and then you'll have to leave. And then I don't know, we had this conversation, but I was really fixated on the leaving bit. And he left, and
mm.
I was like 4, and this kind of dread started washing over me. And then I went to bed that night, and I was like, I had this realization, oh my God, we're all going to die one day. And, and I was like 4, and maybe that was early to have this revelation or whatever. Maybe that's about the appropriate time. But I was like, really just because I love life, and I'm like, oh my God, it has
Mm,
to end. All good things, Buddhism, nothing is forever. And my dad came in because it's late at night, and he's like, Robert, like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just realized we're all gonna die. And he's like, oh, go to bed. Like, don't worry about it. But that was another lesson there. And it's like,
mm,
okay, so yes, we're all gonna die. What are you doing about it to be alive? So for example, my friend who passed away, he has a 10-year-old son now. He's 10 today.
mm.
And if you want to keep somebody alive, you stay in contact with their family. That's what I think. Rather than me just mourn their loss, I
Mm.
am keeping that bond and that connection with his son. And
Yeah.
that's a way of surviving him after
Mm.
he has left.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful that you have this awareness, that you actually realize that you need to stay in touch and be present and feel probably you're stepping into a whole, right? He experiences, and you can fulfill something because you were the friend. You can just maybe you become a male hero figure in his life, and can then the
Yeah.
knowledge you have you share forward, and you can give him that strength and help him to go through the grieving process in that sense.
And the other thing is always being in counseling. We talk about I can't even think of the word now, but anyways, transference, I believe, is the word, and
Mm.
that's that. Uh, as a counselor, I should never be doing, like, when I'm working with a client, I should never be doing my healing through them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
no,
focus is on them, and I
right.
have to be aware of that boundary. Of course, this is different. This is my friend's family, but just being present, and being there, and I do think that this transference piece is so medical, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of, you talked about hospitals being these overly sanitary places that kind of lack humanity, maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you're saying that, but that's kind of what I
No,
find. Like, it's
I
just,
am saying that
yeah.
actually. I am straight
So
up saying that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they lack humanity. And I think that sometimes in counseling, we can sort of lack humanity. Like, you have to
Mm-hmm.
kind of, when I'm working with somebody, to make a connection, I tell them about my story. I don't just go like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that sucks. I'm like, this is not the same, but there's some similarities perhaps in
Mm-hmm.
my own story. And I think that helps people.
Right. It's an attunement. I think we need to attune with our clients or subjects we're trying
Yeah.
to work with or help with, and it's about help, establishing safety. If I can share my story and they know that I understand them and I can bring some examples, then we feel aligned and attuned, and I probably will feel their energy. They will feel mine,
Mm,
and as you know, everything is energy, and we will connect on that level, and therefore we can establish a feeling of more safe sharing forward whatever that person needs to share forward. We're so, I mean, it's again, we're so afraid to be
mm,
seen.
mm,
Social media puts out this idea, oh, we're all perfect. We,
mm,
the way we want to be seen, or the way social media wants to see us, is the perfect life, the perfect partner, the perfect emotion, the perfect everything. But that is not, it's so far, far, far from the truth, right? So then we become afraid to show our
and completely.
rawness, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's a good one, is this rawness. It's like, um, I think tears are amazing. To
Yeah.
cry is such, like, I always feel better, because here's the thing. When I was growing up, I really struggled with anger. And, I'd
Mm-hmm.
punch holes in walls and shit like that. And that's the reason why I was doing that, is because I was sad. The appropriate
Mm-hmm.
response would be like, oh my God, I feel so insecure right now, because that's what it is. The aggression was my way of saying that I can't be beat. I'm
Mm-hmm.
again going to this control piece. I
Mm-hmm.
can control this, by might or by right, or excuse me, by might through right, or right through might. Anyways,
Mm-hmm. Right.
but then the other day, I don't know, something happened, and I just started crying. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
shit,
You
like, I can't.
surrendered.
I
You
surrendered.
surrendered. Rendered.
And I didn't feel powerless. I
Mm-hmm.
actually felt like I accepted this. Because
Exactly.
at the end of the day, what would happen if I, kicked a stool and broke my foot? I'd just make the thing worse,
Yeah.
right? But to surrender. And I think that in life, we try to control life. But
Mm-hmm.
look at Mother Nature. You can't
Mm-hmm.
control, like, you think mankind, as smart as we are, we cannot control a hurricane
Mm-mm.
or an earthquake
No,
or a
this is,
tsunami.
but it's again through COVID, right? It's been so in our
Mm,
face, this false belief that we can control anything, and it's just not possible. So we have to accept and trust. We have to trust the trust. We have to trust the process. We have to trust what comes our way. And when we trust it, the space opens up for us to step in, and then we can be also in this rawness and in our vulnerability with our courage, and then that creates the intimacy we seek so badly with one another, and that also is the support. Because if you share yourself with me and you say, I hurt, I am grieving, I am so sad, I had a hard time getting up, I don't know, I my day sucks, my week sucks, I don't know how, I can't shower. I'm like, oh, it's okay, it's really okay. And then I can hold you, and then we have this relationship, and you know that you're not alone, and that will help you just by that. It's that jigsaw, almost like dance we do, right, in this space we allow, by allowing to be seen. I think that's where we need to go. That's where we need to go back to.
Well, and the other thing that I was thinking about is, like, we're all just here. We want to survive. We want to live, but more than survive, we want to thrive. And I think that by nature, people are generally good. I do believe that, but things happen in their lives, traumas, adverse childhood experiences. They've been hurt so many times, by other people who have been hurt, that they become something. You're not born this way. You're not, like villains in films. Sometimes it's like, that's not really what it's like. People aren't just born Darth Vader. They're not just born Scar. They become that, this
Right.
sort of this manifestation. Even the devil, he was an angel, right? He became, and that's a separate story. But my point being is that people are generally good. And when you can show that vulnerability and that rawness, and that I'm here for you. Like, I call people brother. I don't call people sister as much. I don't know why. Maybe I need to get into that. It's not me being a patriarchal person or anything, but I'm all about the family, right? And the people that I have close connections with, damn, do they know it?
Yeah. Well, I think you just touched on the drama and all the villains, and that we're not born that way. It's
Yes.
it's life happens. So this is what we have fallen out of attachment with ourselves, or like with connection. Let's say we need to reconnect to our true core self. And the way often what the drama has done to us is just a coping mechanism to survive, actually, whatever drama happened. In maybe you were 1 year old, maybe you didn't even have language, maybe you were 4 years old, whatever in our upbringing, maybe we had to really truly learn how to cope. There's two things to look at, right? There's our authentic self and there's attachment. And
Right.
in order to thrive, as you said, we need to really truly be our authentic self. And this is where we struggle so much with, because we have been disconnected, because we gave up authentic self for attachment. And when you are little, you have no other choice. You can't be authentic. You have to attach to your parent. Even your parent treats you horribly, or your family member, because you need to get food. You need to have a place to sleep. So, and then it becomes this coping mechanism. And it works when you're little. And then often when we are adults, it becomes the hurdle in our way. It really stops us from our growth. And that's where, the work starts.
That is such a thank you for sharing that, because you're right. There's the authentic self and there's the attachment. And I think with authenticity, like high school, to me, it's like, God, what a prison. Anyways, my experience is, because if you're authentic, what happens? People oftentimes make fun of you, and then you live with the sort of post fear of that. Like, because once you
Mhm.
step out into society, like, I'm online doing this thing, there's always going to be people that are like, oh, that's stupid or whatever. But that's shame. And shame is
Mhm.
such it's a disease that's killing us before we're
Right.
dead,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
because
shame is
shame creates stress and,
yeah.
and we just need to get away from that. Yes, I think that sometimes shame, we want to, like, when your parents say, oh, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, you know, at the same time, it's why don't we have a conversation? Like, instead of,
Mhm.
what the hell are you doing? Why did you do that?
Yeah, but then if your parents, it's not your parents' fault either because they
Of
just
course.
live their way, the way they learned it, and then
Huh.
they learned it from their grandparents or from your grandparents, their parents, right? So, and then often it's ancestral. And if you don't have the tools or the language to break it or to heal it, so it just ripples forward and ripples forward, and you carry all these trauma. And unless you know that is actually not your fault, then
Mm.
you cannot change it.
What and you think about things like homophobia and transphobia, all these things. It's like,
Mhm.
but why is that? Like, for example, if a friend of mine is gay, uh,
Mhm.
like, why should I tell him how to live his life? That's that shame piece. Why can't they live their authentic life? Why do I have to make it my presumed responsibility,
Hmm.
as a society? Why do we do that to each other?
Because we're afraid of the foreign. What we don't know, we're
Mhm.
going to try to kill, destroy.
Right.
And that's where this disconnect again happens. It's with the planet, it's foreign to us because we lost touch with the core of Mother Earth, how it works, the integrate, beautiful system. We're all one. And if we would understand that, then we could also accept that your friend is simply gay and love is love. And we don't have to be afraid because he's
Mm.
still an amazing human being. Just because he loves another somebody, you can't you can't go completely behind it.
Right.
There
And
shouldn't be any judgment.
and I think that that's just it, is because
Mm,
I think we're coming to a point where we're sort of starting to realize, at least I realize, we have a mental health crisis, on our hands, because we're starting to
mm,
realize how artificial the way we live is. You
right.
know, to me, the internet, I mean, everyone's very concerned about the digital age and stuff like that. But the internet is true democracy. It's actually,
Mm,
I'm able to connect with you like that. And
yeah.
we're able to have this wonderful conversation. And I can do that with all around the world. And it's so enriching because it's actually getting me back to my authentic self through these attachments with like-minded, maybe not even like-minded, but just with people that I can have this conversation with. And
Mm-hmm.
I really think we have to get away. We have to start and pontificate, you know, the way that we live. Because
Mm-hmm.
going to Costco, man, you go there, that's a low frequency spot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what
I
Costco
know
is.
what
This.
Costco is.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry, yeah. I didn't want to assume nothing. This
I've
massive
tried not to
warehouse.
go there, but
Yeah, but it's like you go there
mm-hmm.
and people are on such a low frequency because it's very, again, artificial. Everything's in a box. Like, there's none of it. I also hunt, and this is
Mm,
something I'm never very open about because people have their opinions, but I have such a connection with what it is that I'm doing when I do it. Like, I go into a
mm,
state, and my
mm-hmm.
buddy who hunts with me, he's like, dude, you are a wild man. Like, I'm in the forest and I'm going around and I'm just in the zone, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't even explain it. It's amazing. But versus going to trying to find parking in Costco, and it's like, no wonder people are struggling so much. The way
Mm-hmm.
that we live is
Mm-hmm.
so constraining.
Yeah.
Security, because we're under the guise that we have security. To me, security is revealing itself as a new form of slavery,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily, by an overt oppressor, but mental slavery.
Yeah, the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And then everybody's afraid of stepping off the hamster wheel. So it's just, we I'm sure you had many conversations and I have many conversations around this, but where do we start, right? Now you
Mm,
say you have a 19 months old baby. So maybe you can start with that and the way you conduct your life. Maybe you say you hunt, so you know what it really takes to kill an animal,
mm,
what the gratitude you need to bring to it, and say, I'm going to kill this animal, I'm going to eat it, and say thank you for dying for me.
yes.
You know where it came from, the way you shot it. So there's a relationship, you form a relationship in that moment with this animal, and that's the normal way of life. But again, most people go to the supermarket and buy something deep frozen. They don't know, they don't care, they don't have even the capacity to engage on, like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
They
I mean,
don't.
you
So I
ask some
don't.
kids,
Yeah.
no, again, there's a disconnection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But the disconnect is so vast now. So I'm wondering,
Mm,
how do we start? Is it, how do we get people, I guess, one by one, back into nature, bare feet, touch the ground, really smell the grass, appreciate the butterflies? I mean, I'm just wondering sometimes, how will we make it? Will we really be able to formulate that connection back? I mean, it's so innate to us, right? It's in us. We yearn for it so badly. And yet we're so afraid to step out of the box and back into what is our humanity. And it's with the birth, and it's with the death, and then it's with the life in between.
mm.
It's the risk. We should be taking more risks. We don't need 5 of this and 8 of this. And, the simplicity of life is that. But I don't know.
I,
Sometimes I struggle with it, and then when I'm in a good headspace, then I'm like, no, we're gonna make it. Like we connect, like
mm.
you and I connect. We have this inspiring conversation, and then there's like, yes, yes, yes. There's a tipping point. We're all going to make it. And then when I sometimes watch some news, I'm like, there's no hope.
But I do think that certain things want to keep us bolted. Things
Hmm.
want to keep us strapped down where we are, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
longest journey is back to ourselves
Yeah.
because it's the journey of life,
Hmm.
and we return at the end, I mean, because we could come back, but then we stray off. Then we come back and we stray off, talking again about these life cycles within
Hmm.
our lives,
Yeah.
to be born and to die again. It's not like there's this one aha moment. We have many aha moments. At least I have. I've had many. And every one of them is making me a new, different, presumably, in my opinion, a better person.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's you the layers, you peel back the layers, and
yeah,
you go deeper into yourself, and you reveal more of your authentic self. But that's, again, you have to have that courage. And if you are a person who has been traumatized for
mhm.
many generations over, and you carry that ancestral trauma, how do you peel back a layer? I don't, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just putting it into the room.
And that, I am gonna tell you what my answer has been, and
Mhm.
that is forgiveness.
Mhm.
To and that's just a word, by the way, until you do the action. Everything is just a
Mhm.
word until you do the action. Like these self-help books. You do these 10 things and you're like, okay, okay, okay. But there's you need to have that practicality piece. And I'll
Mhm.
never forget one time I did this anger management course, and I was in the car after and I was doing the exercises, and they want you to go back to your inner child
Mhm.
and to tell them that they're okay, and you hold
Mm.
them and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And I did that, and I forgave people, but then I forgave myself Because let's not
Beautiful.
get it twisted. I have
Right.
done horrible things in the name of pain,
Mhm.
right? Things I'm not proud of. I've hurt people, you
Mhm.
know. And when I forgave myself, dude, I was crying. It was like I shed this demon that was inside of me, this dark pit, and I cried it out.
Maybe you befriended your demon actually.
I
And
think I
you,
did.
because
Yeah.
maybe the demon just really got seen for the first time and reintegrated because he is a part of you. And you looked at him into the eye and said, I forgive you. I want you
Mm.
to be a part of me. Please don't control me all the time. You can be with me, but you are okay. You don't have
Mm.
to act up like this all the time. And
And
that
and
is,
I
I think that's key. Yeah.
and that you love it. We
Mm-hmm.
have to love ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because part of our society is the way it's held by a thread, and that's consumerism. I mean, this
Right.
is just my rant, my philosophy, but
Mm-hmm.
to keep this thing going, we have to keep injecting money into it. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
we're fed these messages of you need this, you need that. And then you
Mm-hmm.
start to think, okay, well, if I have these boxers, if I have this Xbox, I'm trying to get my fingers in here. It's hard because it's a smaller box. If I have the Xbox, if I have this video game, I will have meaning. I will be fulfilled. But then you need the next thing, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have to, the longest journey is back to ourselves and to realize that we're enough. We've always been enough. And the love that we give is the ultimate resource. I know that sounds, kind of out there, but it's true. When you can love people completely, you feel complete.
Right. Yeah. And why is that we feel like it's finite? It's finite. Love is not finite. It's infinite, right? And the more we give it, the more it creates and bubbles up, and the more we share it forward and others, it comes back to us. So it's just this idea. And also, you said so, and I think trust is another one that we
Mm.
really truly just have to really trust ourselves, trust this existence, trust whatever comes our way is meant for us. And
Right.
then if there's a rock in our way, that it's there for a reason, there's a lesson, and we get to, maybe it's another opportunity to pull back a layer, getting closer to our authentic self.
And I think that
Mm.
therein lies the kind of the conundrum, this great conflict, is that stress is a result of us trying to control things or to resist
Mm.
them. And the reality is, and you kind of mentioned it, is that things do need to be made aware, like
Mm-hmm.
our overconsumption and things like that. But if we want to make a difference, we have to be the difference. I mean,
Yeah.
look behind me, you see all these books. It's like, how many trees did I cut down to do that? Like, I should really get an e-reader, right? Point being is that, like, it's so fine and dandy and fanciful that I can be judging of others,
Mm.
but I need to think about how many shirts I have in my closet that I'll never wear.
Mm-hmm.
Change starts with us.
Mm-hmm.
And you even said it, right? Collect memories, not things, not more
Mm-hmm.
junk that you're going to put in your china drawer.
No.
Collect memories.
Yeah, at the end, that's what matters. I think when you go really truly to the very end, what
Right.
people say most, and that's it. I should have loved more. I should have taken that trip. I should have meant my relationship with my son or my
Mm.
best friend, or those things really only matter. Nothing else matters. Yeah, it's the
Love
friends.
is what matters in the end,
Yeah,
but
it
it's what
is.
mattered all along, right?
It
What's
what
what's
matters.
old
Yeah.
is new again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in your
Yeah.
work, like I imagined you must learn things like every day. Like every person is a unique soul that you're with. And it's very interesting because I've experienced lots of death in my life, and in our society we do the whole open casket thing, and I just find like that's not the person, because right now I'm talking to the person, I'm talking to your soul, right? We're just in these vessels.
Yeah.
Mine looks like a ghost, but we we're alive right now. There's energy and electricity running through us that is animating us. But when we die, we go somewhere else. Our soul must go somewhere else because that's our energy. And the best, and this is a strange statement, but the best funeral I had ever had the privilege of being a part of was a Coast Salish funeral, which is an indigenous nation here in Western Canada. And just the way they did it, it was like such an honor to the person who had moved on. Whereas in the funerals that I've gone to, they're these incredibly somber and I get it. I'm not, I'm just saying, I'm comparing the two. Very somber, and like, people just get hammered, and stuff like that. And it's not very healing. Whereas this one was like, I felt like I was doing my healing of the people that I had lost, not only just this person. And it was beautiful. And I
Yeah,
think
so
that
grace.
different
You
cultures,
probably
yeah,
experience grace.
yeah.
And
And also how different cultures do it. Because I think some cultures are more connected than others.
I think we all used to do that. It's just that we have
Yeah.
forgotten. When you really go back
Mhm.
in our own history of our Western society, you can read about it. It used to be much more of a community gathering. The village would come together and you would celebrate the person who moved on. And because of that celebration, you connected and you
Mhm.
became deeper in your relationship, or it was like an intimacy, the holding of the community, the shared pain, the shared grief, the shared absence of that person.
Yes.
And that all, that's so important. And then that makes me think of, it starts with initiation. So for instance,
Mm.
you mentioned earlier in the conversation of when you have experienced the death from innocent child to adolescent, there's an initiation.
Right.
And there used to be also a process, a ritual around initiating that you now are a adult. The family or the community where you lived in would go through something, right?
Right.
And we don't do that anymore. And so the wisdom also is not given on from the elder to the younger. And now, there's some sort of responsibility you suddenly need to carry because you're no longer that innocent child, but you are become an adolescent or an adult, a young adult. And there's something so sacred in that. And so I think it's very similar to the way we are with death now,
Mm.
because it's again this the holding of the whole village or the community, whatever, the way it could be, the bigger family comes together. There is an initiation. There should be a ritual around that, and that
Right.
in itself can be so healing.
This coming together again. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
life life is full of death, but death is full of life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people coming together to celebrate, and I kind of do think, at least, you know, my experience is we try to protect our children and our loved ones from the reality of death. Like we really do kind of do this sort of like, oh my God, and shelter them from it. But that's life. That's the
Mm-hmm.
duality of it,
Right.
right? In order for
Yeah.
something to exist, it also means that at some point it did not exist in the past and it will not exist in the future.
Yeah, and also imagine when you really are aware that this person is going to leave you because
Mm.
of the way it's we're born to die. So wouldn't we then value the present moment in a much different way and be like, wow, I'm so grateful. Thank you for spending this weekend with me.
Yeah,
Because we're like, wow, instead of like, ugh, now I have to spend a weekend with my parents.
right,
It's just we have this
right.
attitude as like an option instead of like it could truly be the last time we get to spend time with them and be with them. And if we come with this attitude to our
Mm.
everyday, I feel like there is a huge shift. It goes away from annoyance, it goes to gratitude, it goes to appreciation. We're like, wow, thank you. And then also being honest, I'm like, okay, maybe don't need to like everything about everybody. We're
Yeah.
human, right? But we can still be honest and still appreciate. We're like, thanks for being honest. I really value that you share this with me. And that again brings the intimacy back into our life. Even if it's not necessarily what we want to hear, but there's this respect. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, it's awesome that you had the courage to share that with me. Thank you for being so honest. I'm like, I feel honored.
And
Mm.
there's a strange irony there that the more fully you love and you live, the longer you will be alive,
Mm.
right? Like the more that you embrace life and love it, you know what I mean, and be present, the longer you're going to be alive
Hmm.
because you're living your life. Whereas as you get older, you get kind of like, fuck, I didn't do that. And it builds up and you become resentful and all these things. I just it's such a wonderful irony of life.
Yeah, because probably time changes, right? That's the thing. When you really step into that space of love, then
Mm.
you experience the here and now so fully because you're so alive and it's so rich every moment. So then, yes, it feels like your life is much longer.
So in your experiences, you know, as a end of life doula, what do you think happens after we die? You know, if you're able to sort of obviously we don't know the answer, but what do you think happens?
Well, I can only maybe my personal my personal opinion speculation.
Mhm.
I think it's not the end. No.
Mm.
It's just that we leave this
Yeah.
body, but there's a reincarnation in a different form and way because there's so many experiences, and I'm sure you had them too, where you meet people and there's this familiarity and you're like, I've met you before.
Mm.
Or we can recognize places. There's like memories. You don't know where they come from, and often they pop up in our dream world, and we don't really know what to do with them. And the more I think, again, we peel back the layers into authentic selves, probably we get more in touch with that, our soul. And or I mean, sometimes you see a baby. I mean, you have the baby and you
Mm.
look at it and it's like this, wow, so much wisdom
Yeah,
in the eyes, in that soul already there. I don't know, it's just sort of comes back for a new journey, for something else to heal. I mean,
I
this
agree.
is my humble opinion.
No,
And
I
and sorry to interrupt you, but
no, no, no,
I
no.
think if we would live that way also, if we would think that it's not the end, then we also would probably be in this life different. There would be maybe a different appreciation, for wow, what happens after, or who is this baby or this new person? Have I met this person before, or why is this person coming into my life now? What is this person giving me? What do I have to give? You
Mm.
know, to whoever I am with. I don't know. I think there's much more to it than what we perceive in this sort of narrowness. I think it's much wider and broader.
Well, and going kind of to what you're saying is, well, tell me if this is what you're saying, that these meridians that we live within, these sort of boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
well, life is kind of boundaryless,
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to work the 9 to 5, or, I have to be here. But really, we are these, like, we're amoebas.
Yeah.
Our souls are amoebas. There's no real shape except for our bodies, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty clear. But even we know that energy, it emanates from us,
Right.
and
It's the
there's
emanation.
something. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't constrict ourselves yet. That's kind of what society needs us to do for it to function,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, just even the fact, like, let's say that we found each other to have this conversation right
Mhm.
here, right now, and we are connected through Zoom, through this not technology, which is incredible. But still, the vibration that we can feel each other's vibration. We
Mm.
don't know each other, and yet going from one part of the world to the other part of the world. I mean, it must be bigger.
Whoa,
It's not
that's a
just
good point. I never even thought of that. Yeah.
so it
Whoa.
is everything is energy, right? So, we are now connected digitally, and yet I see you and I'm connected with you
Mm.
beyond the platform. I am connected with you on a vibrational level. We have this conversation on there's so much more to it.
Wow. And that's, yeah, I mean, because really that's what it is. There's this, there's this clash between control and, control. Even think about politics, control, conservatism,
Hmm.
and
Fear.
liberation, freedom,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Which is being a liberal or whatever. My point is that, you know, we're worried that to keep this thing going, we have to control it. And then if we
Yeah.
let it go, it's gonna be like dynamite. The energy molecules go everywhere. But maybe, yeah, it's just. And the other thing is that there are people that will always try to take more than they need. How do we counter that? I mean, how do we bring people back to their soul? I guess, it's not ours to do. It's not ours to control, but how do people come back? Is that just what death is? Finally, at the end, they realize, the futility of it all, that they're like, why was I, is that what you see in end of life doula, that some people at the end, they see the futility of what they were doing?
That's the saddest, heart-wrenching thing
Mm.
there is. You imagine?
Mm.
This is, yeah, death is not pretty. I mean, it can be, but it's just like birth. It's everything. It's raw, right? It's
Right.
real. Things are said which had not been said for entire life. Regrets, bitterness, it comes out because it's the last moment to say it, to set yourself maybe free,
Right.
to rectify something which needed to, in order to go on into that next part of your soul existence. I don't know. It's so personal. It's but if we again have to come back, if we befriend death and we realize that this is the journey and the journey is, and it lives in the
Mm.
now, and the more rich we are, then we can be with grace to make this transition. And that also is very healing to our world, to our planet, to Mother Earth.
Right.
We can go on and be like, wow, I put my best self forward. I lived the love I meant to be,
Mm.
then that's is healing to everybody around. That's an energy. That's your legacy.
Right. Well,
Could
some
be.
people, some
Hmm.
some people are so light, like just in their because people can have affronts, of course, they can appear like they're very light, but they're very heavy hearted. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a struggle with the authenticity and the fear of the authentic self. But there are other people who just love so wholly, and holy as in like complete, not holy
Mm-hmm.
as in divine. But anyways,
No, yeah,
they,
yeah.
they love so holy, and you see those people and you're like, man, such an encouragement of how to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when I see it in old people,
Yeah.
because it's like, damn, they get it. Because so, sometimes when you're in your humdrum, like I always do the whole like, am I doing what I want to do? And like, I should make more of this and blah, blah, blah. I make all these crazy demands that it's like, well, that's rich coming from me. Anyways, but then as we get older in life, we see like, it's almost like we see the point. We've read a wonderful book and we've done the journey and we've done the, and now we're at the point where the hero is home.
Right.
And after this wonderful journey, he has all these new experiences. He or she, they have this, and they're able to be there and just say, man, what a trip. And I love that. That's so encouraging when I see that.
Maybe we come back to the innocence, the way we were born in, and the innocence of a child. That's the freedom, right? It's the ultimate freedom. When you look at your baby,
Mm,
there's no baggage. It's just pure love. It's the
yeah.
basic needs, but it's love. There's no conditioning. And then when you see older people, and often it seems like they're coming back to a different kind of innocence, and that's why they
Yeah.
connect so well. That's why when you put a baby and an older person often together, and they just click and gel because of
Oh,
that innocence, right?
that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Like older people, their sort of affinity for
Mm-hmm.
baby, like I heard a story of a friend of mine. Her father passed away, and where he was passing in the hospital was right beside the maternity ward. And
Wow.
he said there could be no better place.
Oh,
And I was like, oh,
wow. Wow.
that's
Yeah.
touching,
That's
because he could
touching.
hear life coming as he was leaving. It was like an airport, for
Wow.
souls.
Wow. 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 That's wow. That's intense. It's like
Yeah.
full circle to be. I'm just trying to envision to be in that space where you're so close to the arrival and the end, basically separated
Mm,
by almost a wall. Wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that that's just it, is that this journey, first of all, we talk about privilege and we use it like some people weaponize it, but really let's get back to, because I love words, what a privilege is. And it's a blessing,
Mm.
you know. And I know the world is not perfect, and that breaks my heart to see that, of course, which is why I do this. But still, it's like, to be alive, man, what a privilege, you
Yeah,
know.
it's so precious. It's a precious gift,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Every morning when we wake up, when we get to wake up into our body, that's
Mm.
also not a given. When
Mhm.
we really arrive back, the mystery of that we need to fall asleep. Every organism basically needs to rest, and we need to fall asleep. And where do we go? What happens? It's this mystery that we can function, and then we get to wake up back into this body. There's something when we can really realize what a precious gift.
Wow.
Wouldn't then our day be different? Would we not get so derailed by things which don't matter?
Mm.
Be like, maybe some guy cuts us off and be like, instead of fighting back and showing him the finger and be like,
Yeah.
wow, I feel sorry. He must have had a struggle this morning, but I forgive you. And go on and maybe send some love
Yeah.
just send love energy, and the world is a better place because it's precious. It's so precious.
And really, and we've talked about this, but what really does matter? What really does matter, Claudia?
How well we loved, how much we
Mm,
stepped into our vulnerability and told our beloved and family members that they matter. I think that's you know just the other people, whoever. I mean, there's so many lonely people. We live
yes.
in these urban cities next door to each other. We don't know, and we're so close, and yet we're so lonely. And maybe just, and I think there were some amazing stories because of COVID. Knocking
Mm,
on finally on neighbors' doors and says, "Let's have, I have a meal for you. I don't know your name. I've
yeah.
lived here for 5 years, but here I am." And just this connection again, it's this to step up and show up to ourselves, to our humanity, all our faults in love. Yeah.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, yeah, to step up and show our humanity. Because
Mm,
in the end, you know, to be measured by how well you were, you know, grievous to your life, how well you were pissed off
mm,
versus how well you loved, like
yeah.
that's kind of the sort of the measurement.
Mm.
How fully this person loved. And you will be remembered that way.
Yeah, I
Claudia,
think that's the legacy.
yes. So
uh,
tell us a little bit more about what you do with Permission to Bloom, and because you're on Instagram and people can hear from you there.
mhm.
Because this has been a wonderful conversation, and I want more people to reach out to you. Who should they want to?
Well, permission to bloom is, it's exactly, we talk about this, what we talked about a lot in permission to bloom. I work with women midlife
Mm,
who have reached a lot of their goals in life. And then there's this not often inside. I'm like, so now what's next? And I
mm,
help them to step into their power and peel back some layers. And there's befriending of who we are and finding out what stops us from glowing and shining, that diamond we are.
mm.
Let's say that. Hmm.
Did you have an aha moment? And again, we kind of did talk about this, but what was sort of the turning point in perhaps, or maybe you've always been, the way that you are, but was there ever a turning point that you gave yourself permission to bloom?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe I had to peel back a few layers when I went through my dying process and rebirthing. But yes, I did give myself permission to bloom. And I think it was about when I allowed myself and I accepted. I accepted
Mm,
myself. There was an acceptance with everything I am. And then there was a forgiving
mm,
for towards myself and my surrounding. And yeah, and maybe I'm still giving myself permissions, but maybe again, because we grow, we shed more layers, we have some more deaths to go through, and I think it's a never-ending process, actually. Yeah.
and and to enjoy it while we can. I mean, I
Yeah.
love the name Permission to Bloom, and this
Oh, thank
idea of,
you.
when we're going for a walk and you see a flower, like, man, that's so beautiful, flowers.
Mm,
And just sit there and look at it and thank it. The more thank yous you say, again, there's the irony. The
mm,
more the more the more gratitude you have, the more you get.
right. Yeah. And it's interesting, we do need to see, it seems like we do need to give ourselves the permission to step
Yes.
into something. It doesn't happen automatically. It's a conscious thing. We need to have these conversations with ourselves and create that space and then allow it to come in and up, and then we need to nurture it. It's the same like nature. How now we're coming out of the winter, and nature is ready,
Mm,
and
mm.
so it gave itself, after resting, to permission to come into this next cycle, into this rebirth.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Well, Claudia, thank you so much. Did you anything else that you'd like to share? I feel like there's so much more that we could talk about that an hour is never enough time.
No, we touched on some good subjects. So, and I hope that your listeners feel inspired. And if we just put a little tiny seed somewhere, and then it gets to grow into a sapling or into a flower,
Mm.
even, then, beautiful.
Man, the idea of the flowers, and the bee comes, gets the nectar, and then helps the flower repopulate. It's almost like it's like that with humans. Like the more love and
Mm,
kindness we give each other, it's like we're helping each other populate more. I don't know anything about flowers, but we're helping each other bloom, and we're blooming
right.
more and more. And that's
Yeah,
kindness, and that's love and
right.
gratitude.
And courage.
And yes, yeah,
Courage.
I love it. Claudia, thank you so much for your time. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation.
I did too. I feel lighter.
Ah, thank you.
So okay. Bye now.
Bye.